Hi, welcome to the second episode of Kath-e-Baath. I'm Amrita Kar, your host, and this is on behalf of Kashmiri Overseas Association, the youth group, and we have our second guest, that is Vivek Pandit, with us today. Hi, Vivek.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Vivek, as we all know, is author of We Are Generation Z, the book, and he is the member of KOA Youth from Texas. And I recently met him at the East Coast camp, and we had a quick chat about the book that book that he had published. And but I didn't get a long time to talk to him, and I was waiting to talk to him and find out more about the book. And so here we are on Kath-e-Baath, and mm, going to ask him. So for the viewers who don't know, we also invite another guest with who is a friend of the main guest. So we have with us Vivek's friend Jack Carbonari.
Hi,
Hi Jack, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us. So, more about Vivek. Like many high school students, he just does all the normal things that the students do. But he moreover, he has a sibling. He's an older brother, and he plays football, varsity football, and he does some cool fun stuff. Does crew, and he studies psychology, math, and he studies international studies, and he'll be going to Brown University very soon, and it's pretty cool. And he says he one day hopes to explore all the seven, not one day, but a span of a lot of days, I'm hoping, and seven continents, and maybe even another planet. So cool. Welcome to the show again. It's really nice to have you and nice to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, like that Kath-e-Baath, I'm sure Jack doesn't know. Kath-e-Baath is a Kashmiri, which means it's a term called. It's Kath means story, and Baath means just like chit chat. So it's Kath-e-Baath. It's like a story and like chit chatting about a person. So I wanted to ask Vivek. So let's start with what's your story?
All right, so I began writing my book freshman year.
Oh,
We good?
yeah.
All right, so I began writing my book freshman year. It started off as like a journal. I was writing about different observations I made at school. So, you know, to make it simple, kids were using their cell phones or iPads, whatever, it's lunch table, right? So most people kind of observe that, don't make any story out of it. But I went home, kind of wrote that down. But I found another example during the presidential election between Obama and Romney. I saw what people were saying, and I decided that I'm going to start writing down all the comments people were making, their opinions. And I did that with a bunch of different topics, when it came to discrimination and what people's thoughts were on that. And eventually I had this big journal. I'd say it wasn't, I mean, not too big. It was about 50 pages of just observations and my opinion on what I was hearing. So after I'd done that, I didn't really know what the next step was. I wasn't planning on there being a next step. I just did it to do it. But I got some feedback from other people who said that this has the potential of maybe becoming a book or many separate articles that I could hopefully publish online. So at first, I actually didn't want to write a book. I didn't want to be known as the kid who wrote a book. I didn't want to spend my time writing a book. I was busy with football, school, social life, so I wasn't on my mind. But after more and more people looked at my manuscript, it got me more motivated, and then I kind of just took it on as a project on the side. I didn't really tell many of my friends about it. I don't think Jack knew until it was like published. I just kind of did it on the side, and then I worked with Brown Books Publishing, and after about 2.5 years, it got published in October of last year. So once it got out, then I was able to do lots of speaking engagements, book signings, stuff like that.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. So how did you get into like this particular topic specifically for Generation Z and not anything else? You could write anything else,
Yeah.
but why? What was your inspiration to write the book?
Okay, so I've always enjoyed writing. I think,
And how old were you when you started your journals?
yeah. So I was a freshman, so I think I was 15 when I started my journal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've always enjoyed writing. That's why I started this journal in the first place. I think it's a cool way to get my thoughts and ideas organized, or something like that. Um, but so all of us, we're all Kashmiris. That automatically makes us unique in America, right? So for me, I was a Kashmiri, a Hindu, vegetarian, playing football, and I was already kind of as an outlier, right? Especially in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, I approach situations from a different perspective. So, and I didn't see it like that. It was just my opinion seemed to be different from others. Not in a bad way, just it was a unique perspective, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
I always knew I was good at looking at situations from multiple angles, simply because of my background. All the Kashmiris, we all have similar background. So I decided that maybe I could write a journal on different perspectives, which is what my book ended up being about. And I actually didn't come up with my title until midway through editing my book. I didn't know we didn't have a coherent message in my book until about 3 months of editing. And that's when I realized that all the observations and perspectives I had was actually about my generation. So that's when we decided to reformat the book, restructure it, and make it about my generation. And that was pretty awesome because I was able to be the voice for all my friends.
Yeah.
So, I interviewed friends. They talked to me. I'd hear their opinions. I talked to other children of family friends. Did some research, stuff like that. But I became motivated because it was my own friends telling me what I should write about. So then I was able to hear their opinions and then think of mine and then put it together into a book.
Sure, yeah, it sounds pretty cool, and you become the voice of the crowd of your age. Do you have the book around?
Yeah, you have it?
Uh,
Yeah,
No?
yeah, grab it. Yeah, we got one. Hold on.
You sold all the copies? It's oversold?
Yeah, no, we got one. We'll show you. All right. This is the book.
Okay, you can put it a little back so we can see the. Okay, yeah. Anyways, it's reflecting. So it says we are Generation Z. How?
Identity, attitudes, and perspectives are shaping our future. And
Yeah, that's you. Yeah. So now we have confirmed that we are interviewing the right person. So speaking of the journal, so when you started when you were 15, so you were writing all the facts, your feelings.
yeah, so
What was mostly like your journals were about? What was it that, oh, I'm confused and these are the questions I have for the world, or it was more like, I feel this way, or was it because that I want to change the world, how the world thinks? What was your perspective?
so a lot of people, when they think of a journal, they think of like a guy's version of a diary, right? So somewhere where you can write your thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. That's not really what my journal was. My journal was basically just every day my dad challenged me to write a paragraph or up to a page of something interesting that happened at school. So I would come home, and it actually made me more observant, this challenge, right? Because now I had to focus at school, listen to people more. So I'd come home, and I would write down one thing that I observed or heard, and then I would write why I disagreed with that opinion, agreed with that opinion, or what I thought about it, just in general. So every chapter in my book actually starts with a personal anecdote. So I start off with why I'm giving this topic any value is because it somehow impacted me, or I recognized it as a problem in my school or wherever in the summer. So every journal entry starts off with a story that I experienced, and then it was my opinion on it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty biased at that point because it was, like I said, my journal. I didn't really expect anyone to look at it. But then after writing my whole idea on it, then after we worked with a publisher, we obviously put more research into it, more facts, stuff like that. But the journal didn't have many like facts or research or data. And honestly, the reason is because the data that's being done, right, the studies are being done are about my generation. But if I'm already part of that generation,
Yeah.
everything that I'm noticing is going to complement what that data is saying, right?
Yeah, you're the research topic. Yeah, you're
Exactly.
absolutely
So
correct.
so it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Actually, once I had my opinion, and then I would do some research and
Yeah.
find that it correlated perfectly. So it wasn't that hard to input data or statistics or whatever. But my journal didn't start off like that. It ended up being like that after I published
Correct.
it. Yeah.
Correct. Got it. Yeah. So let's talk more about your book. So it's called We Are Generation Z. So
Yes.
let's define Generation Z and Generation X and Y and where the millennials fit in the situation in this entire configuration and what do you define? I have read your book, so I know.
Yeah. Okay.
You have mentioned it, but for our viewers.
Yeah. So there's no clear-cut definition for a generation. Okay. The thing with generation is it's a gray area in terms of where it starts and where it ends. The things that researchers who name a generation look for when distinguishing multiple generations is innovations in technology, global issues, or something with the economy, like America's economy. So, for example, World War II was a big turning point for generations. The Great Depression, like I just said, was tied in with that global matter. The rise of like the iPhones and stuff, people started calling us the I generation.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's what defines a generation. But in terms of Generation Z, they say we early 1990s or mid 1990s, 1995, 1996 to about 2010 to 2013. So that leaves 3 years, right? We're in 2016. So there's actually a generation under us called Generation Alpha. There's no double A or whatever. It's called Generation Alpha. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I haven't done much research on them yet, but I have a younger cousin who's actually Generation Alpha, so I'm pretty excited to see how she's going to turn out. But yeah, it's basically mid 1990s to 2010, 2013, and we're defined by the iPhones, the new perspective on terrorism, the political shift from being more conservative, I guess, to more socially liberal, but not necessarily liberal, more libertarian, some people would say. But yeah, that would be our generation.
Yeah, seems like you're really interested in politics.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you think the generations like are different? For example, to me or to a Gen X,
Mm-hmm.
a Gen Y would seem the same way the Gen Z seems to Gen Y, and the same way Gen Alpha would seem to Gen Z. So is this, you think this is special, the Z is special, or is it something that, is there something very, very exponential change, or is it something on a linear scale, the change?
Yeah, so sometimes the differences between generations are subtle, but I would make the argument that the difference between Y and Z is pretty significant, or especially X and Z. And the reason is, things like I mentioned, the iPhone, has come out. We have the Edward Snowden incident has impacted Generation Z's perspective on government surveillance, which we can maybe get to later. The Arab Spring occurring, that's affected.
Snowden, you mean?
Hmm?
Snowden, you mean?
Yeah, Snowden.
Yeah.
And then the Arab Spring that affected our perspective on international matters. So there's a lot that's happened in the past 15 years that I would say the difference between Y and Z, especially X and Z, is pretty significant. But for example, I'll give you the economy, right? Went through a recession, and us, Z, saw our parents go through that recession, go through a struggle. So what happened is there's actually been data that shows that Gen Z is much more cautious when it comes to finances. So, for example, Generation X and Y, they did a study, and most members of X and Y would not save their money if given $500. Okay, if you gave someone $500, they wouldn't save more than half. Now ask a Gen Z member, they're going to say 70% of teens are going to save more than half that money, because they've seen what their parents have gone through in terms of a recession, in terms of financial struggles, and we've become more cautious when it comes to finances.
Really? I was thinking that, I would expect like the new generation would just splurge. but I'm hearing different
Yeah.
things.
So yeah, we're much more
Aware.
when it comes to finances.
Mm-hmm.
We're worried about the college loan debt. That's a huge issue that impacts Gen Z. In fact, it's such a big issue that even it's being brought up in this election. So that's just one example of how the economy has affected, Y's perspective and Z's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. So I understand what now we have defined all the generations. So you would say Gen X would be our parents, your parents.
Yes. And
Okay.
then Y would be like older 20s, and then Z would be us, so 18, 20 at the oldest. Yeah.
20th. Okay. So what was the inspiration? So I know that you have mentors. I read your book,
Yeah.
so I know that. So who was your like the most inspiring or mentor in writing the book?
All right. So this is I've been asked this question. It's a difficult one to answer. Multiple answers to this. I'll tell you why. So I would say my dad, because without him, this book never would have happened. It would have been a journal, and it might have been a couple articles. And then the man who wrote my foreword, his name is Brian Rigg.
Mhm.
He is the one who actually finally convinced me that this could maybe be a good book.
Mhm.
So, my dad gave me the idea, but Mr. Rigg is the one who kind of topped it all off. And his story, I don't need to go into it, but his history, background, his story throughout high school, college, what he's done with his life is pretty amazing. And hearing what he's been through and how he's published multiple books, in fact, he just published one last week, really gave me inspiration to decide to write a book. But I would also say, everyone that I've interviewed, talked to, all my friends, they've all kind of inspired me too, because without them, I wouldn't have my personal anecdotes in each chapter. I wouldn't have my perspective. I wouldn't have any reason to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had multiple people inspire me, but I would say every person that I've interacted with and that I probably mentioned in the book, either directly or indirectly, has somehow inspired me.
Okay, yeah. So it's an influence of like everyday life, whoever you interact with every day. So
Yeah.
inspires you. I got it. Jack, I think you're on mute. Did you mute yourself?
Yeah.
Hello, Jack.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are in the same room. Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
All right. Yeah. I think that's why the feedback thing was happening. Okay. So would you like to add some or ask some questions? How do you know, first of all, how do you know Vivek?
So Vivek and I met in 5th grade
Yeah,
at CES, and we started hanging out in 6th grade, and really became friends in 7th grade due to football. And so we started playing football together. Then we played basketball together. And,
There's a feedback. Is there a YouTube open somewhere? Is there a YouTube links open, a duplicate link?
No.
Would you mind? Okay, Vivek, would you mind muting yours so that because you guys are sitting close to each other?
Yeah, mine.
There's a feedback actually. You'll have to, or why don't you drop out so you are on the same camera? One of you can drop out. Jack, if you can drop out and you can be in the same camera, that'd be awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right.
all right. So
This is better.
we
Okay.
started in 7th grade, and we became great close friends in 8th grade because we're on the same football team, and we started hanging out all the time. And basically, athletics brought us together, and we've been great friends since.
Yeah, sure. It seems like football has been a passion both of your lives, pretty much. Okay. So what do you think about his book?
I think Fake came to me first and told me about the book, and I was so surprised because no one knew about it.
Yeah.
It was such a shock. I was like, you wrote a book, you didn't tell me. I was so angry. And I mean, I read it once it came out, and it's a pretty good book. I really enjoyed reading it. It was cool to read a book published by one of my friends that was written so well. a high school level, and he read it like.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
I didn't say that. He said that by himself.
I'm pretty sure there's an influence here. No, I agree with Jack. I think it's a very good book.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a good input to people who actually don't get to interact, or also a feedback to maybe parents or like elders. What do you think about that?
When I was writing this book, when I had to first pitch my manuscript, I wrote that my target audience was going to be teenagers or young adults, particularly people in Gen Z. What happened after I published my book is I realized that, sure, that was a target audience. Like, he's read it. Many students have read it. I've had kids from elementary school to college, read it. But one of the larger target audiences is actually parents. Parents, teachers, and whatever other occupation works with students. And the reason is because they read this book and all of a sudden they're able to understand their kid better. So in my school, I've had all my teachers read it, principals, superintendents, stuff like that. And they all love it because now they understand how kids are thinking, especially when I wrote about education and how it's not necessarily complementing Gen Z's idea of what education should be like. So I was able to talk to.
What is that idea? Oh, before that, can you bend the laptop so that okay, cool. That's good. So what is that idea? What is the idea that you're trying to convey to, say, Gen X, so parents or principals?
So first thing was so there's two types of motivation. Okay, there's intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. And school, for the longest time, has been based off extrinsic motivation, which is giving an award to make someone feel good. So, for example, grades, right? That's an award to make us either feel good or punish us. GPA, rank, any type of academic award, whatever. Now, I'm not saying you gotta get rid of those. I'm just saying that's an example of an extrinsic motivation. Now, intrinsic motivation is learning simply because you like learning. Now, all humans are born with intrinsic motivation. We all are naturally curious, right? If you see a baby pick something up and start banging the table, it's not because they're trying to necessarily break something. It's because they want to know what happens when you get a bottle or something and hit a table, right?
They're curious, yeah.
So yeah, exactly. They're curious. So everyone's curious. The problem is school nowadays is taking away our natural inquisitiveness. So I want you to think about this, right? The last, like I said, 15 years, but even look at the last 30, 40 years, so much has changed when it comes to technology. Yet you look at the classroom system and it hasn't really changed. You still walk into the same rectangular room, you sit at a desk, you look at a board, and you look at a teacher in the front. And every day is a routine, every day is predictable, and you know what's going to happen. We're still using whiteboards, we're still using overhead projectors, stuff like that. What Gen Z is thinking is, why can't we use more fluid types of learning? Or, we use an iPhone, right? We all are smartphone. Many of us have smartphones. So we're used to touching screens, manipulating, moving things, yet we don't do that in school. Now, there's a big movement now in school to use laptops, iPads, stuff like that. So at least they're fixing it. But, it took a long time for them to realize it.
Isn't it hard for the teachers to manage students who are constantly on or a laptop, with maybe Facebooking, and or is it just a part of who you are?
So exactly, that's a great question. So that's what this book is to do, is to figure out, to put those two ideas together, to build a bridge between it, right? So there's the older generations, like our teachers, who say they're on Facebook, they're on social media, they don't care about learning, they're just distracted. And then there's us who's saying we need that, not Facebook, but devices or something to give us the most efficient type of learning.
Okay. So do you Snapchat from your class?
No, I don't really get on. I mean, if I get on anything, it's probably Twitter's for a little bit. But I'm just saying, I mean, for example, if I was given an iPad or more, I guess, technology while learning, I honestly think there would be less distractions by Twitter. Because if we're using an iPad to learn, there's not that desire to pick up your phone, right? And so I think that could be almost like a solution. But another thing is, so
I remember, like, I think Gen Y would have done, like, if they wanted to communicate with their friend in the class, they would just send a note and like send it
Yeah,
back,
exactly.
or
That
like,
was text. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Um,
or text, yeah.
yeah, but the other thing is, so everyone's has been impacted by the rise of the internet, right? Technology in general, not just Gen Z. Um,
Mhm.
so what's happening is we're acquiring a lot more information a lot faster.
Yes.
So we can hear about scientific discoveries the next day, right? You know, when they detected gravitational waves, that boom, that was a huge thing. Everyone was talking about it in 24 hours. The problem is at school, you can't talk about things like that because you're on a rigid timeline. You're on this schedule, and the teachers have to prep you for a mandated test at the end of the year that they're therefore judged based on their passing rate, right? So
Yeah.
everything is based on this rigid schedule. So what happens is tangential topics that we want to talk about, you can't. So when gravitational waves were detected in physics, we couldn't really talk about it, and all of a sudden our curiosity and love for physics was just squashed, right? Now we're back to learning about whatever we're learning in class, not about the cool thing they just discovered about space. So that's definitely one of the things that Gen Z is talking about, which is
To be current and not fix.
and less mandated tests, which I don't know if like you've been paying attention to politics or whatever, but that's something they're talking about as well. So that's another big thing.
Yeah, so you think that it's disconnected. There's a disconnect between the politics and. So, do you want to talk about politics? Who do you want to vote for? Are you going to be voting?
Yeah. All right. So I definitely.
You don't have to say it.
Yeah. So I definitely encourage everyone to vote, and I even in my book there was a whole section on voting, and I even interviewed multiple people to hear all their excuses for why they shouldn't vote. And then I put those excuses in my book and then gave a rebuttal perspective, simply because I think voting is very important.
Yes.
So for this election, it's been pretty interesting. I think we can all agree. But it's okay. So I'm just going to talk about Gen Z in general when it comes to politics.
Yes, we will focus mostly your feedback based on your book, which is We Are Generation Z.
Yeah.
So you would speak for people who are around 18. What do they think about the election, and are they inspired by Bernie Sanders? Are they, how is it affecting?
We've heard a lot about Bernie Sanders winning a large portion of the younger voters. But this is why. This is what. One sec. This is why we're voting, or people were drawn towards Bernie Sanders. So Gen Z is, like I said, more conservative when it comes to finances. We're worried about the college loan issues, and we talked about Snowden. And it's interesting actually to see that the older generations kind of view Snowden's actions as not patriotic. Whereas younger and again, I'm generalizing. This is not everybody, individual's opinion, but the younger generation, Generation Z, actually views Snowden more as a hero. And the reason is because we're seeing what the government is able to tap into. And when we see that they're able to tap into like our emails, our phone calls, our Twitter, stuff like that, Gen Z has more of an emotional attachment towards social media and technology. So we view that as an infiltration of our identity. So we viewed Snowden as more like a hero. Now, that has given us this cautious perspective towards government surveillance. So
so you're becoming more and more aware because, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're becoming more and more aware of the current things that are happening because of the media, and that's what was lacking in the previous generation. So, so that's how it is more relevant because in previous generation it wasn't like out there. I mean,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the last thing I was going to say about politics is, so like I said, financially we're a bit conservative, but socially we're beginning to become more liberal. In fact, it's actually interesting.
Is it in general across the board?
Yeah, so I would say, again, everyone has their own individual opinions and perspectives, but strong majority across the board is becoming more socially liberal. That doesn't mean liberal in general or Democrat or whatever, but socially liberal. So look at, gay marriage, for example, became legalized. Now that wasn't necessarily us voting because we weren't, we're just turning 18, but stuff like that is going to continue to happen. Things like that are going to continue to happen. And just from my personal experience, I remember a lot of my friends freshman year, were against, gay marriage or certain liberal perspectives. And now it's funny, senior year, they're in
They're
favor
fine
of
with
it.
it. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's going to continue to go that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely something to look for.
Sure, yeah. So Jack, what other reviews or what other views do you have about Vivek's book, We Are Generation Z?
Are you talking about politically or like as a whole?
The book itself, when you read it as his best friend, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So how did you perceive it, and what affected or what triggered you the most in the book?
Well, it was great to read because I agreed with almost everything that was in there. I just never took account for it, and I never thought about it as much. It was just kind of in the back of my mind. And as I started reading it, it's like, hey, like I know what he's talking about. Like I understand this, and it kind of brought forth like stuff that I didn't even like think about.
Okay.
And so like now, like I feel like I'm more knowledgeable about the subject because it's been reinforced by his book.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your favorite part in the book?
Okay, so he talks about how we kind of feel like we're entitled to like feeling like we're winners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And as like an athlete,
You mean snotty, like Gen X would call you?
Yeah. And so I thought that like entire topic about how our generation is kind of we believe that we deserve certain things even though we don't necessarily deserve it as much, but we feel like we do deserve it.
Of course, yeah. We know that.
Great section.
That was a great section. And what was?
That was my favorite part.
Did you know that about? Did you know that? Did you ask him earlier?
No, I actually didn't. I just heard that right now.
So tell us more about that section.
Yeah. So so basically, Generation Z. Yeah, a lot of parents are talking about how all their kids are getting trophies all the time, participation medals, stuff like that.
Yes.
So what's happening is we're actually getting this feeling of entitlement, right? Where we believe the world owes us something, which is not necessarily true. Now, how that's impacting us, all right? That's impacting us when it comes to our drive to be successful or trying new things. So what I mean by that is a lot of times you'll see someone fail, right? And then they, instead of taking personal responsibility, and this is getting worse with Generation Z, and there's been studies to prove it, we're starting to blame external people or reasons or something like that.
Like, it's not me. It's not me.
We feel like we're the better. We're entitled to the success that we wanted. So we're starting to give up more. Some of us are just not even trying anymore. And then if we do fail, we're blaming others for our mistakes.
Failure, yeah.
Yes. So that's how entitlement is really, really affecting us. So I would say it's probably one of the biggest problems with Generation Z, to be honest. Is they call us the era of entitlement. This time period right now is what it's been coined.
Isn't it just annoying to the parents and everybody to be like, why are you doing this? Or do you think the parents are also going into that direction, saying that, hey, my kid is awesome? I don't know. It's something wrong with the world.
No, that's actually that's a good point. So I definitely heard, I've heard both opinions. I've heard some parents say, like, when I was younger, my parents told me that I had to fight for what I needed. The world doesn't owe me anything. And then you hear other parents kind of parading their kids around, talking about how awesome they are. So I would say there's definitely both sides of the spectrum. And whether you view this as a problem or not, I think it's leaning towards parading children around, to be honest. I think
what's the solution, let's say? Yeah,
so, I don't know exactly how you would resolve something like this. The first thing to do is recognize it. Which is something that has not been done.
Acknowledge that there is a problem.
Yeah, especially with Gen Z. It's hard to accept the fact that it's our fault when we screw up or fail, right?
Yes.
So, we're not perfect. Even though all our lives we've been giving medals for participation, so we think we're perfect. So I think
but I really, as an outsider and not a part of Gen Z, which is 18 years old and 20 mid-20s and below that, I would be like, yeah, maybe they are really, really great kids, but but I have started to realize that it's more of how it's been projected now. I think from our perspective, I think the generation Y used to not, I would say, advertise that way themselves, or would not perceive themselves as, they would be more doubtful about saying that, oh, maybe I cannot do this. But I feel they are more confident. I would say Gen Z is more confident, or even if we want to say they're overconfident at some point, and that comes in their way. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, well, exactly. And another thing that you just, perfect segue, is Gen Z's actually been known to be the biggest risk takers. Because what's happening, and that's not necessarily a good thing, all right? I mean, that can be a good thing, but yeah, you're laughing too. It's not necessarily a good thing. And the reason because is we're using social media, so tweeting something is easier to do, or you have more confidence to tweet something as opposed to say something face to face, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about getting into a fight. You don't have to grow the confidence to look at someone in the eyes and say what you want to say. So we're becoming riskier with what we're doing.
Do you think this is also affecting the communication perspective of the situation, that you guys can only communicate over text, or a media which allows you to edit your response?
Yes, exactly. So
are you facing problems? I know I am, but are you facing problems where you are not able to make a conversation which is coherent, for example, face to face?
Yes.
Well, that's why we're having a face to face right now, but we are coherent here. So
I'll tell you how communication is being affected with online, our online use. First thing I would say is the reason Gen Z loves being online is because you can create who you want to be, which again may not be a good thing, but it could be. It's just how you view it. That's just the fact. Is you can basically use your imagination, create who you want to be, mold yourself. Everything from choosing your profile picture to how you phrase something when you tweet it or put it on Facebook as your status. Everything is how you want to present yourself. Whereas face to face, you get what you get, right? You can't create this persona.
Yeah, you can't take it back. You just said it. So.
You can't necessarily edit profile picture, right? You can't edit clothes and go change right away, right? So that's definitely why we love online. And I would go as far to say is online is basically like an extension of the real world for us. It's an extension of our identity. Like I was talking about Snowden, when they infiltrate our online stuff, that's an infiltration like if they were to walk into our home.
Yeah.
So that's why we love online. Now, how it's impacting communication.
Yes.
I'll let Jack say this because we were talking earlier how it impacts.
Let's hear from Jack.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, a bunch of people are afraid to actually say something to your face now because they can text it to you, and so they don't have the confidence to say things that they believe because they can text it to you. And if you get angry and if you don't,
they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, they don't have to do anything about it if you don't agree with them. If you say it face to face, you could have an argument about it, and you have to support yourself with your own knowledge and stuff. And you have to deal with the situation face to face, and people are going to do that now.
And the other thing of avoiding confrontation is when you text or use words online, there's no tone, right? So you can kind of manipulate what you were saying. Oh, I was being sarcastic, or this is not what I meant. That's how you read it. Whereas face to face, there's tone, right? Tone is a dead giveaway of kind of what you meant.
Yeah.
The other thing, along with avoiding confrontation, is you see this huge rise of emoticons, right? It's a Gen Z thing too. Emojis and stuff like that. Why? Because that's how we want to express our feelings now, right? So we've even gone from using words to using faces in texting. So that's helping us avoid confrontation as well.
So how do you solve the confrontation problem? Do you think it's going to become a norm, and people are going to work around it, or do you think it will be fixed, or we just have to deal with it?
Yeah, so I would say it's something we're gonna have to deal with. Probably again, like I said earlier, acknowledge, because there's no getting rid of I mean, you can't just take down Facebook and Twitter or Snapchat or texting
Yeah,
right away.
I think it's here to stay. I think it's here to stay, and it's a different way of communication. It's just going to have its own thing.
And I think the ones who recognize this as being a problem instead of denying it and saying, "Oh, the older generation don't know what they're talking about."
Yeah.
The ones who recognize it, keep up their verbal skills, confrontation skills, debate skills, whatever, are probably going to have a huge advantage in about 10 years.
I agree with you. Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. So let's look at your book again. Take a look at it, and let's show it to our viewers.
All right.
And would you want to say how to tell them how to order it? I know I have ordered mine from Kindle from Amazon. It's on my Kindle. So what other ways are there to order it?
All right. So you can get this. You got the ebook version, right?
I have the ebook. Yeah.
Okay. So there's an ebook.
I'm not Gen Z, but I still do.
There you go. It's on Amazon, and I mean it's on like eBay. It's on wherever you want to buy something. You
What's
can get
the price? What's the price?
Okay, so the price at Barnes & Noble is $16.95. If you were to buy it from me directly, I'd give it to you for $15. But and then on my website, it's cheaper. So my website's wearegenz.com. And that's where I would prefer you buy the book, simply because it's my website. And you can look around, read more about my book. If you want, you can message me something. And I get more of the profit if you buy it off my website, so that's always a plus. So,
okay. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so my book's online, wearegenz.com, or Amazon's also the biggest, I guess, area to buy it.
All right. So how do you relate the Kashmiri youth, the group that we have? Let's move on to our KOA youth group. Jack, do you have, before we move on to that, do you have last few words to talk? And we are getting back to personal questions, so you will get to talk more about that. So do you have anything to say about the KOA youth? Do you know about it?
No, I don't really know about it that much.
Okay, so let's just begin with Vivek then. Okay, Vivek, how relevant, first of all, what do you think of the group that we've started, KOA Youth, on Facebook?
So I think it's pretty awesome. I'm glad we started a Facebook group, right? Compliments our interest in using social media. And in terms of, and I think it's a great way to like collaborate, because I'm going to be honest, I didn't know many of the Kashmiris besides the ones in Chicago, because that's where my grandparents live. And met great people. They're all pretty cool, lots of them different backgrounds, networking skills, stuff like that. So I think engaging the youth and creating a group is definitely beneficial, not only for the youth, but for the adults as well. Now, how this book relates to how we can relate to the Kashmiri youth or the Kashmiri organization in general. So I think it would be great if the youth read this book, simply because, like what he was saying, you'll learn more about yourself. You'll be more knowledgeable on lots of different topics. That's my normal pitch to the students.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of the adults, so I remember when I went to the East Coast camp, and we had
that was in July where we met.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a discussion or like a panel on how we can get the youth involved, right? And this is what we came up with, which has been great. But I think if this book was read by the adults or the leaders of KOA, it would allow them to better understand the youth, and I think it would spark ideas for how we can collaborate between the older generations and younger generations. Now, for example, Megha, she brought up that idea of the app. That was a great idea.
Yeah, Megha has brought up an idea for the viewers that we should have a dating app for Kashmiri youth, so that you start dating within the community. And I was actually going to bring it up in the meeting today, which is at 3:00 Eastern time. But I'm glad you brought it up. I think there is a lot of things that we need to express, which is the platform we've given, which you can express it on as KOA Youth. That's what I thought. Yeah.
And notice how a Gen Z member came up with that, right?
Yeah, and a Gen Z.
I think if the adults can read this, maybe they'll be able to think of ideas like that or better understand how we're thinking, and that's beneficial for everybody.
Yes.
So, and the reason I think this is especially helpful to KOA is, like I said, we were literally just discussing how we can engage the youth.
Correct.
It's prime time to read the book and understand the youth. and
Yes.
how we
And
can
that's why I have you. I was like, what great opportunity. And we are having this problem here. We are having KOA Youth group formed, and there is a person who's a member of KOA Youth from Texas who has written a book on the Generation Z, and he is, 18, and he is, addressing this particular situation. And I thought it was very relevant, and I thought I got lucky with having you on the show. So how would you describe? So we have on KOA Youth, we have like below 18, but not many of them. Maybe 13 years old, I think, and above can be on Facebook, but I don't think we have many of those. We have 18 to 25 a group, but we haven't grouped them. But I'm just telling you how we have segmented it: 18 to 25, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, and above 35. So we have people between 18 to 35 on the group. So how would you describe each group?
All right. So earlier I kind of defined, like you just mentioned, different generations, kind of, right? Some of those age groups you could group two, maybe three into one.
Do you think they should all be in the same Facebook, on the same Facebook, or should it be separate? I mean, I'm like, I'm not going to be in the same group as you then, for example.
Yeah. I think I know that was something that was debated on our youth group Facebook page. I think you could do both. Well, okay, for example, Texas, I'm involved in the KOA group meet. They just added me, which is pretty awesome. And I'm talking with all the youth. But it's also helpful when we're connected to the adults as well, right? So we can share ideas. So I don't know why there has to be only one way. I mean, we could do both, right? We could have a youth Facebook page and then the overall page, or however you want to do it. I think being part of both groups would be pretty beneficial.
Yeah, we have an overall group for all which is Kashmiri Overseas Association, which is the parent group, where not only parents are, I'm on it, you're on it, and everybody can be. That's the main group, and we just made a subgroup, KOA Youth for 18 to 35. And then we have these sub groups, which are group texts.
Yeah, exactly.
We have zonal group texts for whoever wants to. So it seems to me that group me for Texas and the area around it is more to do with 18 to 25. I think that's the range.
I think that's around the age group.
Yeah, and we have a WhatsApp group in New Jersey, which is between, I think, late 20s and 30s. So I think we find our way, I guess. So I think that's what you're trying to say. Do you think the parents should be on it, who of the kids who are actually not on Facebook? Do you think the parents could be on the same group, or should we just have the posts which are related to the kids who are not on Facebook, who are like younger than 18 years old, to have it on the parent group or email them? Do you think it is feasible to have everybody on the KOA Youth who are interested in the youth?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I think there's gonna have to be you could do that, but I also think there's gonna have to be more divisions. And this is just my opinion, all right? This could be, and I don't really care. Like, I'm open to any idea.
This is just this just counts one vote, not more, because just because you're on a show doesn't mean that you have more weightage. Okay.
Awesome. So I think that having youth by themselves in some ways makes us not necessarily more comfortable, but speaking is different. Kids are, when students are talking to students, it's a different environment than students talking to students while parents are on there as well. Which are not necessarily like, I'm not saying we're gonna be talking about inappropriate things. I'm just saying it's a different dynamic. So I think ideas are spit out more. I think people are actually more engaging. Do
you think the 30-year-olds should also be? So where do you draw the line? Do you think it should just be within 25? Do you think this should be within 25, or it should be just 18 to 25, or 18 to 30? Is your battery dying? Yeah,
he's gonna grab a charger.
Okay, cool.
I think. Okay, so again, this is my personal opinion. I wouldn't really consider 35 like youth, And
where do you draw the line? Below 35?
Like
30?
30, yeah. Like,
okay.
Yeah, under 20s is fine. And then I would say I wouldn't really consider you like a young adult or, youth. Like our group text, for example, in Texas, is
18 to 25. It's 18 to 25.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's great. I think it's cool to talk to like the college students and then not much older or grad students or something like that. But it's all on how you want to define it. I just don't know if 35 is youth. I'm not saying they shouldn't be part of the group. I think we should have a group where we're all involved. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think 30s and 35s. I don't think we have many 35s at all.
Yeah. Exactly. I noticed that.
No. Yeah. They're not really interested in Facebook. So they're just. So yeah, just manage your charger first.
Yeah.
So we don't get cut out. Yeah.
We're fine. All right.
So do you think we should so what you said is between 18 to 30? That's what you said.
Yeah, I think
between 18 to 30, and if there is another younger than 13 who are on Facebook, no parents.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Okay, so how do you, now that we have the KOA youth group, how do you think we can make the group more relevant? If you want to connect it to your book for Gen Z, if you can show the book, we have more viewers, so maybe we don't. Yeah, just keep it around. Okay, cool. So how do we make the book more relevant to Gen Z more relevant? The group more the group more relevant to Gen Z.
Yeah. So I think
the KOA youth group.
Yeah, I think we've already taken the first couple steps, which was creating the Facebook group. Whoever initiated the group me text, that was an awesome idea. You have leaders like Mega stepping up and saying she wants to create an app. That was a great idea. So right now, I think we're on the right path. East Coast Camp a few weeks or a few months ago, we were behind, and that was obvious. That's why we were talking about it. And from there till now, there's been significant improvements involved in regarding bringing youth involved to KOA.
Yes.
There's been improvements in communication between each other. So I definitely think we're down the right path. And slowly, I think more ideas are going to pop up. Once you start getting on the internet, you start thinking of more things. Once you start thinking about how kids are using technology, you come up with the idea of an app. So I think right now, I wouldn't necessarily say there's any particular problems that we're having or a particular suggestion. But I think we're doing
we're in the right direction. Yes. So I'm really glad that you have volunteered and you had written or filled out the form for volunteering and being a representative. And I'm really happy to have you on board, and we look forward to having more ideas, especially from people of your generation, because it's who you are going to be there for a long time in that group, because you're the youngest. So it makes more sense. So so I hope everybody reads your book, and I have and hopefully they all enjoy it, and as much as I have, actually, and I'm sure Jack has also, like he mentioned earlier in this interview. So Jack, how do you perceive Vivek as going? Let's talk more about how he is as a person, being your best friend. How is he as a person? Is he like just by himself, or how's he?
He's very outgoing, and he's a great guy to hang out with. He's always there for you. Like, honestly, if you need anything, he's probably the first one I'm gonna call, because he'll do anything for like a good friend, and which I value highly. I know other people do too. That's amazing to know that someone's gonna be there for you, like, no matter what.
Good. Have you been paid for this, to say this?
Yeah.
Are you getting a cut from the book?
to
say all this good stuff?
You kidding me?
This is not a promotion. This is from the heart, right?
Oh, that's really sweet. Yeah, I think he's right. So Vivek, what kind of music do you listen to, and what shows do you watch, and what movies?
Yeah, so I spit about myself. I love sports. I'm open to trying any type of sport. You know, like you mentioned earlier, we played football since 4th, 5th grade throughout high school. Me and him hit up the gym a lot, play basketball, so we love basketball. In terms of music, I love any type of music, like anything from Frank Sinatra to like Wiz Khalifa. You know, a whole array of music. So.
Do you also listen to what your parents listen to? Do you listen to any Kashmiri music at all?
Yeah,
I mean,
so we have. It's unbelievable. My iPod is like, there's like 1,200 Indian songs and tons of them are Kashmiri. So that's always going on in the background. My dad will play in the house. So yes, definitely Kashmiri music.
So you're second generation. So in America. So they were born in
America, but my parents moved here and went to college in America. They're born in India, went to college in America. I was first born in America.
Correct. Got it. Yeah. So what are you doing next? Are you going to Brown University? And I know you're going. I know what you're doing for the viewers. What's next?
So I'm gonna be going to Brown University in about 2 weeks. Jack leaves in about a week. He's going to Tufts to play lacrosse there. So he's a sporty guy.
Yes. I know.
I don't yet know what I'm going to major in. I wouldn't say it's, but I have ideas. So I'm looking at, they have a program at Brown called Applied Math Economics. So I'm thinking that maybe going down the consulting route, maybe go to New York, Wall Street. I don't know. That's always an option. I love international relations, like we'd mentioned earlier. And you notice this too. I'm big on politics, so maybe politics is a route. But I'm pretty much open to that type of stuff. I've ruled out engineering, and I've probably ruled out medicine. So
the two major things that Kashmiri parents would want you to do. You ruled
out. So, yeah, I'm looking more. I mean, Brown's is a liberal type school with the social sciences, liberal arts school. So I'm probably going to be going down that path.
All right. Yeah. Sounds pretty cool. And interesting and very Gen Z.
Yes.
Of course, you are passionate about football. We've talked about that. So how did you get into crewing?
Yeah, so I love football, but when I was looking at the schools I wanted to go to, football was an option. But it was going to be pretty rough balancing football and academics. That's actually the reason I didn't play at Brown. I just did not think it was going to be feasible for me. So when I looked at rowing, I saw that it's a highly intensive sport. It's very tiring, but at the same time, it's less of a time commitment that I would say than football, and it's a more relaxed environment. So it would have been easier to balance rowing with academics. So when I go to Brown, I'm definitely going to be looking at the rowing team. Maybe join, get out on the lake every day or something. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah. It looks like a very interesting extracurricular to have, also keep you fit while you're writing the books. So are you writing any books in the future?
So I'm not working on one now, but in the future, and I don't plan on being like an author as a profession. But I definitely think, like I said earlier, I love writing. So I'm not necessarily planning on writing another book, but I'm not saying that it probably, won't happen. I definitely am probably going to continue writing. I may think of an idea that I'm passionate about and may create another book. But I definitely think in the future there may be another book or two. So
yeah, sounds good. Sounds like you. I would expect it. I guess. I mean, I think as a person who what I understand of you is, if you have any questions or if you have any ideas, you put them down and just write them out, and then why not publish it, right? So now that you're out there, So Jack, any last thoughts? First of all, congratulations to you for your admissions in Tufts and all the cool stuff that you're going to be doing there. What are you going to be studying there?
Biomedical engineering.
Wow, that was my major, kind of. Yeah, also, I did my master's in.
See, that's what my parents wanted me to do.
Signal processing. Okay. He's more Kashmiri than you are.
Yeah, that's what I just told him. So my parents are more proud of him than me, right?
That's too funny. Good luck with that, Jack, and thanks for joining us. But I want to before we end the session, I have this section called the Who, and it means 10-20 in Kashmiri, and we do 10-20 rapid fire questions where I give you a choice and you choose on that, and it's not what you think it is. It's not blue or pink. It's not that.
All right, I'm up for it. All right, let's try it.
Okay, so quickly, so you have to be very, very quick. Okay.
All right.
So this is not like Gen Z texting and thinking about it like. Okay, cool. Success or good luck?
Good luck.
Kashmiri or English?
Kashmiri.
Texas or A&M?
Texas.
Dallas Cowboys or Houston Texans?
Dallas Cowboys.
Snapchat or Instagram?
Snapchat.
Okay, I should have asked Twitter. Gen X or Gen Y?
X.
Printed book or digital book?
Ooh, probably printable. It makes me an anomaly, but printable.
Yes. Analog or digital watch?
Digital.
Smart car or sports car?
Can you repeat that?
Smart car or a sports car?
Sports car.
Okay. Neil deGrasse Tyson or Carl Sagan?
Tyson.
Okay. Paneer or samosas?
Ooh, samosas.
Okay. Moon landing, fake or real?
Oh, definitely real.
Okay. Pluto or planet? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Travel to Mars, for colonizing, mining, or tourism?
Ooh. Colonizing. Why not?
Yeah, I would expect that from you. Hyperloop in 10 years, possible or not?
Possible.
Okay. Travel, planes or trains?
Planes.
Okay. Pokemon Go or Angry Birds?
Neither.
You're not into it? Sailing or crewing?
Crew.
Okay. Cool. Okay. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. I had fun.
Yeah, cool. Jen, please read Vivek Pandit's book, We Are Generation Z. And I'm sure everybody will like it as much as I have and as much as Jack, your best friend, have. Thank you for joining both of you. And hope to see you in the future meetings of the KOA Youth.
Yes,
and and looking forward to meeting in the future East Coast camps.
Yes, I will be there. Awesome. Thank you.
Keep in touch. Thank you both, and good luck at your respective universities with your new programs.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
See you, bye.